Oh my goodness, everyone. It's another Wednesday afternoon, 4:20 p.m. Assuming you're listening live, maybe you're listening whenever it's convenient to you. How do you know when there's new shows available? Because Cannabis, well, you hit subscribe, you hit the notify button. How do you know when there's new shows available? Because Cannabis on Spotify, you follow the show. Instant download right into your phone. That's how convenient we are for you. You hit follow on Spotify every Thursday, brand new episodes, and we'll automatically download it for you. You're welcome. That's how we treat our customers, Dustin Kava. We care about them enough that if they follow us, if they subscribe to the show, we'll tell them. Personally, we'll have a little help from your AI overlords. We'll tell them when the next show is an instant download. Are you an instant download on your podcast guide? Do you set that setting, or do you save some space and don't set that setting and say, I'll download it on my time? Gosh, damn it.
Yeah, I'm not a download type of guy. Maybe if I'm going on a flight or something, or a really long car ride through the mountains where I'm iffy about service, then I'll download a couple as a backup. But I mostly don't.
Story of my life. I am BC Wehman. That was Dustin Kava. This is the Because Cannabis podcast, brought to you by Wayward Media. Brand new episodes on YouTube every Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. on Thursday, Spotify with video, and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. Though I just learned, we're going to have to figure this out, Dustin. Did you know Google Play ain't playing no more? Google Play is officially ending as of mid-February, and all Google Play podcasts are being exported to the beautifully named YouTube Music. I don't know the difference right now. So YouTube Music, by the way, I can't figure out how to import it yet. So if you're a huge Google Play user, we might not be on there right now. We're not on YouTube Music either. I need my IT dude, Dustin Kava, to help me out there. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but Google Play going away. Does that make you sad? Did you used to listen to podcasts on Google Play at any point in time?
Dude, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, there was a time when there was exclusives on there, or certain episodes.
They used to have that. Yeah,
they were hopping for a bit there. Same thing with like Google Music or Play Music, when you could upload all your MP3s to their cloud and then stream your own stuff from their servers. That was like my music backup spot for a while. But they have a habit of renaming services and merging services and then renaming them again after they've renamed it, and they're creating another service that does exactly the same thing but is called something different. But
I think that's the case with YouTube Music. YouTube, obviously, now that Google, is part of that world and ownership of all those things. So YouTube is where predominant, and let's be honest, that's where the majority of people watch our podcasts. The majority of people listen to podcasts without even with video, but just kind of in the background on their phone kind of thing. So, right, I think they've realized that YouTube has become the destination for entertaining ears and eyes. And so they're going to do the YouTube Music as part of it. It'll probably get a fee or something, part of the premiums, I'm sure. So YouTube Music, which almost sounds counterintuitive to what YouTube is. It's basically like videos with no videos. You might as well just call it that. So videos without videos, music is going to be available soon. Oh, it's already available now, but Google Play going away. So don't listen to us there. Anywhere else that you want to listen to them. I sometimes do download them before I do on a plane. I have that same thing, Dustin. When I travel, when I go somewhere, I'll find a show, I'll burn through it, I'll download it. I'm about to go on a plane again here, and I'll download that. But if you listen to the show back around Thanksgiving time, I took a plane on a trip. One of the shows you can listen in the beginning when we always kind of rant and rave about whatever. We were talking about me traveling in my super sweet. By the way, don't do this. It's illegal. And as always, we can't help you out if you do something we recommend. But if you take a picture of your fine or ticket or something, selfie in the prison, tag us on social media. I'll send you Dustin's beanie right off his head. Literally a Dustin Kava worn beanie. I will promise you right now, if you get in trouble with the law because of our advice, we can't help you. You are fucked. But send us a picture and a selfie in prison. I'm going to take that hat off Dustin's head and I'm going to mail it to you. You're welcome for that. Does your hat stink, Dustin Kava?
No.
Yeah, no either. We washed that stuff. So I had a great idea. I mailed the product to myself, to my destination, got my flower. It was in a state that did not have adult use. I broke the law. I don't feel bad about it. But I traveled with all my non-flower stuff super easily. I had my cart in there. I had my luster pot. I had a pack of edible, and yeah, not a single word, right? So I have a little bit more of an issue though this time, Dustin. I am flying on a plane, but a big part of this problem is when I land, my destination is moving. I am going on Dustin Kava, my very first cruise. It's a short cruise. It's a longer story than I want to talk about today, but I'm going on my very first cruise. And so I realized right before we went on air, when we decided we're going to talk cannabis tourism, what better way? And we'll talk through all those questions today. Right now, during the show, we're going to talk about where you, how and why and where you can travel with cannabis. We'll talk a little bit about what areas people are traveling to, destinations to smoke cannabis. And then we'll finish the show in the last bit talking about out-of-state licenses, people traveling to buy cannabis from medicinal to adult use states, what kind of numbers those are and such. But let's start with this. Do you know the answer? And right now you may be typing in the comments or screaming at me. Let me know. Can I travel on a cruise with weed? I have no idea.
I mean,
have you ever done it? Have you ever been on a cruise? Like, I've never done one.
No, I've never been on a cruise, but I've been asked twice, and I've always had that fear of I'm not a travel with my shit guy. I'm more of a pick a destination that has something than bring mine along with me. So I take more of the risky approach, the chance approach.
Well, yeah, I do that. All right, so let's go to where you're supposed to go when you have questions. Let's go to the internet and search it up right now. Can you? Hold on a second. All right, so I've been using. By the way, shout out to Google Bard. It's pretty fantastic. Can I just share on screen right now? If you're watching on YouTube, Bard is just totally judging me right now. It's like shaming me that I asked this question real quick for this. So can you travel with cannabis on a cruise? Is all I asked Google Bard. It's Google's new AI. It's able to read the internet. We'll turn there. Absolutely not. In bold. It took time to format the font to ensure that I understood this.
And bolded, terrible idea too.
Bringing cannabis on a cruise is a terrible idea. It carries significant risks regardless of its legality at your origin or destination. Here's why. Well, this we know. Cannabis is federally illegal, so we get that. And so are boats federal? Remains illegal in the U.S. and cruise ships operate under federal jurisdiction.
Do they? Like, what about the international law? Like when you go
hold on, let's get there. So even if it's legal in your destination, right, it's potentially a federal offense because maybe that's how they get away with it. Maybe cruise ships are part of the United States. Like when your cruise ship goes into international waters, and this is how it doesn't get like hijacked by pirates and Tom Cruise has to come save the day. Look at me. Look at me. Right, Tom Cruise comes to save the day. Sniper, green light, go. Blah, blah, blah. Carol, sorry, little Captain, not Captain Ron. I was gonna say Captain Ron. That's the Kurt Russell.
That is not, that's
not it. I'm the captain now. And so, but I think it's how they also prevent them from basically getting hijacked in international waters. Is if you hijack a cruise ship, you are hijacking America. You are hijacking the country. So it's a federal piece of property.
Yeah.
So you can't take it there. Confiscation. They're going to have dogs. Debarkation denial. I will be denied boarding.
Yeah, I've also thought that I've heard like even hemp got people lifetime bans.
Well, that's the next point. Like it says a lot of cruise lines have policies strict, including CBD products, expulsion, legal consequences. You could be blacklisted from ever taking a cruise again because you rolled up. If I roll up there with my little bit of leftover wildflower mint chocolate chip moon bites, and they're like, "No, you will never fucking ride this boat again, American." I don't know.
I swore I read an article where they left someone in the country, a different country, because
that's the other part. Is the other country, by the way, and this is if you're talking going into another country, and we'll talk about this in a second. Some countries, they ain't playing. They ain't playing at all. They're talking like lashings, like canings, right? And prison for life kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Carrying it. So the answer to the first most immediate question to start the show, Dustin, can I bring my cannabis on the ship? Looks like your boy is going dry. Looks like your boy is going to go dry. Thank God for the booze package, which was purchased. So I'll have to remain hammered for the weekend. But I got to tell you, Fridays. That will be
the longest time in years. Is how if
oh
like,
my Lord. We have all right. I can't wait. We have to, I might have to go straight off until we record from this will be in late March area from then and through that and see if we can record one when it's been about 4 or 5 days. There's no way. As soon as I fucking land in Ohio, it's happening. I'm gonna have to
I
record
always
that. So
keep
yeah,
something like a half a pre-roll or the gummies in my car at the park and ride. That way, literally, as I'm pulling out of it, I'm eating everything, or like I have it in my hand when I'm paying the park and ride person. Like, thank you.
there is a dispensary not too far from Hopkins there. I'm flying back into Cleveland. I got to fly down there so I can take a little, maybe a little gum. I could pop one, like literally, like right as like about the gate. I'm like, oh, so at least for the first like 3 hours, maybe 6 hours, I'm just tripping balls high. Though I'll be with my family, so that's probably awkward. So don't take your weed on the cruise ship. We just learned that today. Flying. It's getting easier and easier to fly with cannabis. We know this. There's a lot of articles on how to do it. We talked about it then. Be careful if you do it. It's still technically illegal. In some states you land, it's illegal. Traveling across borders. And I want to talk about some places here in a second that are having some cannabis tourism. But currently, Dustin, having your product in the United States of America and taking said product to any other country in the world, I would put as a bold-faced, absolutely not terrible idea. You don't want to be crossing borders with something,
Did I just hear you
even
say not terrible?
no, terrible. That's
That
absolutely
is
not. Oh, there's a bad grammar. Absolutely
terrifyingly
not.
terrible.
Period. Terrible idea. Period. Thank you for calling me out on that one, Dustin. Yeah, terrible idea, right? You can't be going anywhere. And then don't even think if you are traveling internationally, especially if you are in a more communist country, flat out do that. And more some of those they don't play at all. Keep it go dry for that. So a big part of we were talking about this, Dustin. We had a few weeks ago, we were talking with New York is looking to be a big travel industry. There are states that have Nevada and even some Michigan are talking about, cannabis tourism as a business. Cannabis tourism, interesting concept. It's a thing that a lot of people predict is going to, rise and get big. If you kind of look at stats, it says, the tourism market is valued at 17 billion in 2022, could rise up to 80 billion from the folks that are crunching numbers at New Frontier Data or MJ Biz Daily. So we have these numbers out there, but a lot of that to me is people traveling across borders. That to me is just out of state licensing. I think that's what that number comes from. There's no way that people are traveling to a state on in-state consuming. Well, that's what they assume, the 17 billion, right? That's what a lot of that is. It has to be just people purchasing from out of state.
Okay, I guess the question I actually have has to do with, do you think people actually are flying to a destination because of the cannabis, or do you think that they're just buying it whenever they get to whatever that they were planning on doing? Is it this extra sensory thing, or is it the reason you're going?
Okay, well, that's a good point. So I would say it's almost twofold. So let's take a look at like the first place I ever heard about that you could travel to like smoke weed is Amsterdam. I think growing up, like that was the vibe. We've come to learn it really was only like hashish bars, and it wasn't like you could just smoke weed all day, every day in Amsterdam. That's what we all thought. But that was the first place that I've ever heard someone mention. And this is obviously before any sort of federal legalization. But even then, even in the late 90s, early aughts and stuff, I want to go to Amsterdam. Did you ever have you ever been to Amsterdam, Dustin? Let me ask you, have you ever been? And would you
No.
say that's kind of the first place that had a cannabism tourism business? I think the second would be Jamaica, but just by proxy. But I think Amsterdam actually had a cannabis tourism industry.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think when I first started smoking weed, that was the place to go. That was all you ever heard about. That's all I ever saw, especially like 15, 16 years old, like watching videos of any type of smoking being done legally. It was done in Amsterdam.
And it's always on-site consumption, right? Like you couldn't just buy it. You had to go to these cafes, these coffee shops and then buy it. It's funny. We always talk right now about how hard it is to run consumption cafes, and Amsterdam's like, bro, we've been doing this shit for a long time. We just need to ask the Amsterdamians what they think about it. But that's like the first place. That's the first place that I think every person knew about.
And you are so right about that, about Jamaica being the second, where it is by proxy, by like
it's the Rastafarian culture, right?
Yes. So I wonder what's three? What's the third? If you can think back to growing up, what's the third place? BC, British Columbia? Did they have
no? Well, that would be now. I think that's the only two. Like, there are some modern places. Let me tell you some places I think could take in a second. But Amsterdam's the OG, even though they kind of tried to disown that. And then Jamaica, even though Jamaica only, which by the way, as a country, it's not adult use. It's just completely decriminalized, right? And they have medical, but they don't have adult use, but they also aren't as strict on enforcing some of the laws of gifting and purchasing. And you can buy weed pretty quickly when you get off the plane from someone, and they like the police aren't going to bust you and stuff. But it's just because it's illegal to possess, or it's legal to possess. So I think it started with Amsterdam. I think Jamaica is the other one, but it's heavily with the Rastafarian culture and just kind of where people could think of cannabis consumption. I'll tell you one, and that's not a place that I think I'm ever going to visit. But did you know let me ask you this. What is the country that has the least amount of laws regarding drugs and possession and consumption? I don't think people think of it as a destination site. But if you happen to be over in this part of the world, maybe you're in Espanol, you take a little trip and you can go to a country that is definitely down with whatever you want. Do you know what country I'm talking about?
I feel like, is it okay? Decriminalization of it's like I know, like I was originally thinking like maybe like an Uruguay or something, but
all drugs
is what's
are decriminalized, not legal. Decriminalized all drugs.
Gosh, all I kept thinking about is Amsterdam. Who else decriminalized all drugs?
Portugal, the man. Well, not in this case. It's Portugal, the country. If you feel it still in that case. So Portugal, the country, in 2001, decriminalized all drugs. There's a great podcast, I'm terrible with names, that talked about the minimal amount of drug crimes. It's almost nil because they're like, bro, do whatever. Like, it's so decriminalized. And what happened is the hard drugs just phased out. They don't have heroin overdoses. Portugal also has a if you are convicted and stuff of a heroin overdose, you go to detox treatment centers. It's an automatic thing. You don't go to prison for hard drug possession. You first have to enter a detox program. And if you fail multiple times and things, you do eventually go to Portugal prison, which doesn't sound like fun. But Portugal, for drug offenders, there's a couple asterisks here, so don't fact check me, but I'm pretty close on this, allows especially first-time people convicted of hard drug use treatment. That's their goal. They're like, all right, I see you're ODing on meth, but let's help you out. And so they don't like just throw you away and just force people into prison drugs and things. So it's not a country that people think of, but actually in some of that area, Spain's interesting and such. The only other country that I would think would even be on the map. Well, today there's two other countries, right? It's Canada, which really doesn't get talked about a lot, but clearly having the whole country have adult use makes it anytime you go to Canada. But I don't think anyone's thinking, bro, we got to go up north to get some of that, because most of us United States have stuff. So if you're south, the only country you go to is Uruguay, which is the OG of legalized countries, right? But once again, no one's ever been like, bro, I'm taking a trip to Uruguay to get some dank. I'm like, yeah, I got 17 places 5 minutes for me that I can get some dank too. So I probably don't need to go to Uruguay.
I definitely don't think that people are traveling specifically for the weed. I think that they are thinking about all the things they're going to do after they get their weed.
It's that weed can be consumed while they're there comfortably. The only place, so if I have to go then, let's say, all right, the top ahead, the best place I can think of that someone would go to consume that flower and travel for that weed, something in Humboldt County, right? So you're in the Emerald Triangle. So now you have some OG lineage, or you get to talk to some growers. That would be the other thing. I don't think it's about the weed. I think it's about the grower. We had Jorge Cervantes on a past show. We've talked to Ed Rosenthal, right? If you got an invite that Jorge and Ed were having a party And they're like, hey, Dustin Kava and BC Wayne from Because Cannabis podcast. We've been on your podcast, both of us. We love you guys. We're going to invite you. You got to come out here to Colorado to smoke some weed. I'm not going there because they have bubblegum kush. I'm going there, which I don't think you could name. I think that's illegal. I'm going there because of who's growing it. Yeah. So it's not about the flower. It's typically about the grower or the scientist, because the flower, I think, is flower. So people, if they travel, are going to travel, and these are diehards, by the way. This is a niche market. It's a, however you pronounce it, it's it for the grower. Do you agree? Is that a fair summarization?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best. I think that's probably the better explanation of what would happen. I do think cannabis tourism is a real thing, but I think I redefine it in my head a lot more often than just I'm traveling for weed. I'm traveling. I think, again, it's just,
well, let's say even this. So right now, Luxembourg, maybe Germany, but probably Luxembourg first, which I think is a tiny country by Germany. I'm not a cartographer. Don't get mad at me. If you have the know where Luxembourg is on a map and you can hit it with a dart, let me know in the comments. It's okay. But I don't know where Luxembourg is exactly, and I'm not ashamed to know it. I would look it up on the map. I could ask Bart. It would tell me. But Luxembourg is probably, it's terrible. I sound so American and naive there. My bad, Luxembourg. Luxembourgonians, you're my buds. So the Luxembourgonians and me, we're about to legalize adult use. And so what I could think, but this to me is, once again, it's not about the plant. It's about the place. You could see let's say some of these fancy little tiny European countries and Switzerland and shit, they finally start legalizing it. And people are like, well, now I want to go ski the Alps, but you're still going to the Alps, but now you can puff pass on your way down the slope. Right?
Exactly. And
so
that's
it's
what
not
I
about
think.
the weed still. Go to Luxembourg.
It's still, what beautiful places in the world do you want to fucking go and hang out in?
It's where
and that's where I'm going to smoke my weed. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. So, you know what happens? You know how people would market it? They'd market it on the weed.
Yeah, exactly.
You should market the place. The weed's there. You don't need
Mount
to sell the weed.
Everest still. I mean, like, we are looking at
so much better though.
Yeah,
it's like Everest, but Everest when you're high. That's my pitch, right? Bro, it's the Alps, but it's the Alps when you're high. I should be a mark. Someone should hire me, be a marketing genius. It's like Mount Rushmore, but looking at Mount Rushmore when you're high. You're welcome, South Dakota. You are welcome. Right there. Put that shit on your poster. We're going to rock it. Speaking of, South Dakota is not going to have, they'll have Hell's Angels roll through town every year. But that state will not allow people to legally buy adult use weed. That's a real dichotomy there. Dakota's bad land.
And I mean, I think back to I never hear anything really about, I can't imagine many vacations being on wine tourism, or, it's a niche subset where maybe 4% of traveling is to actually experience a certain
thing. Wine tourism would be to go drink wines grown in that valley. So you're looking for grape. Essentially, it's the same concept. Like, you're looking for grape types. You're looking for fermentation types. You're looking for the soil of the region, very cannabis centric, and you're looking for the winer maker. Oh my God. What's a wine dude called? The brewer? No, it's not a brewer. Hold on. That feels like a viral clip. I feel like you would just went in because I don't know. Is a sommelier? That's a dude that loves it. What's the winemaker? What?
Vintner.
A vintner? Are you serious? Is that it?
I'm pretty sure.
It's Because Cannabis, folks. Every Wednesday, 420 not because wine. You want Because Wine? Go down the road. And let us. I don't know where the road is. Hit skip. No, talking cannabis here. Because Cannabis every Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. Thursdays on Spotify. So let's talk then United States-based tourism. Because if I say cannabis tourism in the U.S., we both agree, I think, that it's probably a grower or something, or it's the wine theory, the soil in the region, the Humboldt County-ness of it. But when people think cannabis tourism, what's the first city, state you think of? Go.
Vegas.
Vegas. Everyone says Vegas, but that is not. It's the same thing as fucking Switzerland. It's like Vegas, but when you're high. It's the same thing. They got Planet 13. They got a ridiculous, oversized, not going to be able to pay the bills in 4 years dispensary because people just want cheap weed, right? So they have it. I get it. I'm cool with that. I love it that you can buy it all over the place, but they're not going there to smoke Vegas weed. They're going there to do Vegas while on cannabis.
Yep.
So cannabis tourism is not about the plant, though that's how it's typically sold. It's that the plant's available to do the things you already like doing, but when you're high.
Yeah. I think
Um,
you're so right about that. I think you're
who do you think is so Vegas is first? Give me some other states you think that would thrive or that have that 17 billion. And let's talk some more of the out of state licenses because that's the other part of this. Either purchasing to do things while they're there and high, or purchasing it to illegally drive across the state border and bring it back. So, what other states? Vegas is Nevada is first, with Las Vegas being the city. Give me like two or three other states that you think sell tourism or you think people want to go to, regardless of why. What state do you want to go to smoke weed while you're high?
I thought you got summer sports and winter sports. So I definitely think like California and beach life. And
yes. And California is a huge producer. They have Humboldt County. They have the most they were the first medical. So I get that, right? And it's just a busy state. California, agreed.
I also think like really busy metropolitan areas. So like your Chicago's, your New York Cities.
Ooh, no one talks those yet, but they will.
I think
Colorado has to be. It's the OG. It's the original.
And that's
state.
The winter sports, you know.
And people still think. I have to say, I know Las Vegas is probably the busiest cannabis destination, but I think if you asked 100 people which state, if you had to pick, would you want to go smoke some weed in of all 50? I think Colorado. If you took away like, well, I want to go to Alaska.
I think Montana, man. Like,
well,
I'm like,
if you take away aesthetic, if you just pick like, pick one of the states you've never smoked weed in that you wanted to go smoke weed in. I think if chosen in Colorado would be chosen more than California would be my guess. I think it just feels like the original most friendly cannabis state, even though California had medical first, right? I feel like that. I feel like people think of Colorado as the coolest state when it comes to cannabis, right? And even Oregon and Washington by proxy, but Colorado. But New York, you are so right. New York is going to take off. I'll tell you who's going to be. Oh, the other state that has been sneaky about it, Michigan. Michigan's all in on the weed. Like they don't actively, but they are very confident with their out-of-state sales. It's going to drop a little bit here soon, but Michigan is okay, I think, with being known as a weed state. $3 billion last year, Dustin. $3 billion. How much of that was medical? $3 billion is what Michigan pulled in last year. What percentage do you think was medical sales?
Under.
You are correct. On the under. Keep going down. 9%.
9%.
9%. Missouri, the same thing. Missouri did $1 billion, 9% of sales medicinal.
Do we have any numbers about the southern bordering portions of Michigan to the sales in the upper regions? Your thumbs, your
I would love to know that.
Because that's really the telltale sign of what is really happening there is,
Well, let's talk about it. So Ohio's about to go adult use. I think if I was a company that wanted to sell adult use products, you need to make sure that you are covered all down the Indiana border, all through Cincinnati, through Marietta, all through the Ohio River. Get your Kentuckys, Virginians, and then you got to be in the Youngstown, Warren, even upper north on the PA border, right? And then I think, like, if you want to buy cannabis, right? Ohio is not a destination. Even if they made a destination, a Planet 13 in Columbus or somewhere, like, I think Ohio is going to be a state that people drive to, buy weed, and then illegally cross borders, much like Michigan is, and smoke it in their own place. I think a lot of what's going to happen from that, especially those, and if you're doing that, you're not driving to Columbus or Cleveland. You're going to Cincinnati or somewhere along the border, right? You're not just going to go hours past. You're going to go to the closest ones, I would think.
Well, especially when you're looking at every hour you get past the state line is another hour you still got to drive back.
Valid point. And with product that's technically, well, it's illegal there, but yeah, you just want to get that over and done with as soon as, but not that any of us would ever do that, because it is federally illegal to cross state borders with cannabis. Be aware of that. Send us a picture of your ticket, tag us, you get Dustin's hat.
I don't think these surrounding states are going to take very long to convert to adult use. So
not after this happens. Do you think they're going to police the border? Do you think the cops,
they always do originally?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Did Michigan? I don't remember when Michigan went adult use.
They had state patrol up and down those turnpikes really fucking around.
I bet you the Indiana, I mean, all those states. I mean, Kentucky just went medical, so they're obviously a little comfortable with it. Pennsylvania is a medical state. West Virginia is
Not.
not a medical
I don't
state.
think so. And they have some really strict laws on
They
concentrates.
do, especially same with Carolinas. Tennessee is not really a lot of those states are the last few. There's about 10 states that I think there are 40 now. There's 10 states that aren't medical. You have Idaho, which is in the
Okay, they do have medical in West Virginia now.
thank you. All right. Okay. Carolinas, I don't know if they do or not. Tennessee, does Tennessee have medical? Can you find
Ooh.
out if Tennessee has medical? So, but they have states that have medical but won't have adult use. But as Michigan has seen, Ohio had medical. But yes, initially, the first few months, it's going to be heavy traffic through that area, heavy police presence on the borders, you know, the green
Not
fear.
legal in Tennessee, medical or rec.
How about Indiana? I know it's not rec. Is it medical in Indiana? It's the last state, last border state. Pennsylvania's got about a 3% of the population are medicinally registered patients compared to Ohio, which is 0.8. It's an
Neither
interesting.
rec or adult use in
No.
Indiana.
Indiana's got no med?
No med.
Oh my God, those Indianans. I don't know what, by the way, the plural of any of these countries and states are, but I like my own vernacular. Those Indianians, they're gonna want some weed, man. They're gonna be like zombies. They're gonna be like World War Z at the Indiana border. Like, I mean, right now, the northern Indianians, they get to go to the Illinoisans and they get to buy all the weed they want up there. And they don't, you know, but those folks on the far eastern Indiana, those southeastern Indiana folks, which by the way, I've been to. This is how I have been bootlegging apparently since back in the day. I remember about 10, 12 years ago, my brother, no names, used to have heavy Cincinnati, really crazy with their fireworks. And so we'd have to go across the border to Indiana to a Sam's
Ooh.
Club like fireworks,
Yeah.
illegally transport them across the state and blow them up in the sky there. So it's, you know, back in the day, Indianans. So I got to think those folks are jonesing for some legal cannabis. So I got to think the southern border dispensaries, adult use, they're going to be monitored. People are going to be checking. There's going to be prepared for that, to be subtle. It is illegal, but that's where the business is going to fall for that. You know, states rely on, there's not a lot of information available for as far as out of state, like licensed sales, but we've heard reports that Michigan is upwards of 20%. Illinois, its first year, we know statistically was 25%. So it's a big business in Ohio. What do you think? What do you think the number for Ohio is going to be with out of state licenses? Just a guess.
Dude, I actually think it's not going to be as large as I thought. So originally I would have said 35%,
It's probably too high.
but I think that probably more like, yeah, probably closer to your 25s or 20s. But I also think that we're going to see partnerships that are out of state partnerships, but being done with in-state licenses from locals. So that's like our good friend Belushi coming in and partnering with somebody in the state of Ohio and taking an out-of-state national brand, but using local mechanisms and locals to make it.
Yeah, so you set it up there. Maybe that's how we get some Iblis finally, some charm. Maybe
Ooh,
deep up in here,
gosh, I
get some
want
charm
it
here
so bad.
for that. So you're right. You're gonna have the multi-state brands begin to explode, and you're gonna start to find those products, but they'll have to be produced here. Really, you have that state-to-state exportation, which I think I gotta be honest. I don't think any state wants state-to-state exportation to be legal.
What do you think that is? Do you think that it's because they're missing out on one portion of the tax revenue? Like 280E is a bitch. And so like when you're collecting a ton of state and local taxes based on a lot of these companies, just basic operating mechanisms, is it that the other state, Indiana, is now going to collect that revenue while they're chipping in shit?
I think that's part of it. I think as a cannabis company, if I had to put my thinking cap on, once you have state to state exportation, it's better initially for the brands because now you start to have brand followings. Right now, it's really hard to build a brand on a national level on a state-to-state basis because everything is self-contained. The only way to really do it is just, some of these smaller, like Awana Gummies, or someone who works with a local provider. The other thing is kind of celebrity type strains like Chong's Choice and Belushi and Willie's Reserve. So you're doing what you talked about. You're bringing them in here, you're growing it. But we have seen in every state, brand loyalty can be hard because people are going house brand, right?
Yeah.
Cheap brand, those things. That's how they shop. So what happens though is, for example, let's take alcohol. Back in the 80s, we used to drive when I was young man, not quite legally consume alcohol, clearly not breaking the law. Like, we used to drive across the border to PA to get Yingling beer, right? Because it's the only place you could get it. And it was magical and mystical. Well, now Yingling beer is a bunch of other chains and stuff in there. So initially, though, when Yingling came into the market of Ohio, it was their sales. Ohio, you can get us.
Yeah.
But then as other brands start to then come in from out of state, right? I drink a lot of IPAs from all these little local state-to-state breweries. So you start to saturate. So your brand has to be strong. And initially you can be, but then it starts to saturate and it becomes, once again, about the cheapest product. So if you can keep it state to state, you can maintain a self-contained brand in a state level. But once it's beyond that, you want to go big, but then you also have to focus on the local market. It changes your marketing because now you have to focus on different things and you have to think global and you have to think internet. I don't think anybody wants to sell internet weed. It's going to really complicate the branding, and it's going to be, you want to talk about the death of the industry as we end our cannabis tourism conversation? It's going to be opening it to online sales.
Yeah.
Because it's going to Amazon the shit, right? You're going to have distribution centers. That's the other thing. Cannabis has, like Ohio has no current distribution center. Some states are beginning to see the popularity of what alcohol has in every state almost, which is a distribution, which is a middleman that now you have to now pay a fee, which affects prices because someone has to hold and inventory it and then ship it. And so now you lose disconnect with dispensaries, which is what the industry is built on. But in order to survive and grow, you have to distribute. It gets complicated if you expand the state border. It makes you focus on a whole different market. And then the expansion of the state border leads to eventual online sales because that's federal legality, which leads to bottom rock pricing. You'll have your niches, you'll have your super fancy ones, but it's going to like Amazon it. It's just, I fear it. You don't know. And there'll always be a strong market of medicals and stuff like that. But I think if we look realistically, state to state exportation is a bad thing. I think this cannabis tourism isn't a terrible thing. I think it helps states out and it makes it easier for you to compete and have unique things. Like you can come to Ohio. It's the only place you're going to be able to get Ohio or Michigan, like a Galena's second breakfast, some famous of their kind of unique strain combined with their own in-house parentage of that aspect. So
how do
as
you
long
know?
as you're a state,
Like, I know when I go to Vegas, I'm not under, as a tourist, there's no fucking way I understand the local lore behind certain products. The cannabis industry isn't large enough. It doesn't have 115 years of Yingling history.
and it's almost too much though. There's so many strains. It's not just Yingling. It's
Right.
just strain after strain after strain after strain after strain after strain after strain, and it's impossible to keep up.
Right. So I don't think I'm shopping that way, but I do think that there is something to be said about easy access when you're in town and the ability to just spend a little bit more money locally and anything, whether that's buying an eighth or buying a 12 pack of alcohol or a bottle of wine. It's that add-on sale to your trip. It's every dollar counts when it comes to just how much you spent when you were here. So
it's going to become a vacation-y thing. Like, right. I don't often crack a beer before 10 a.m. I don't very, I should say I
But
never.
on
But I'll tell you right
vacation.
now, I was down in Florida for that week and it's hot all day and you're on vacation and it's old person spring break all day, every day. You don't think about it. Right. And so
Right.
you're on vacation and you let yourself have more leeway with what you'll consume. And so the cannabis just becomes like that. It becomes a way to enjoy your vacation. Well, hi. Gonna market that. It's interesting to see what happens in the few years as we go forward. It's obviously going to continue to grow, but I think it's tricky. I think it's how you define cannabis tourism. The destinations will grow, but I think we discovered, Dustin, in talking through this topic today, that the destination is about doing that while under the influence. And if people would travel, it's probably for the region or the person versus the actual product, right? Because you can get a lot of strains everywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment and a pretty good. I think we did it.
We did it. Cannabis tourism. Are you traveling with weed? Let us know in the comments below how you like to travel with weed. Don't take it on a cruise boat. That's what I just learned right now. Don't go on the cruise boat with the cannabis at all. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's show. Cannabis tourism. You know, why not? Where are you going to travel? Appreciate your time here on the Because Cannabis podcast. Brand new episodes every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. on YouTube. On Thursdays, Spotify with video, and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts but Google Play. Soon on YouTube Music once Dustin figures it out. Check us out. Follow us socially at MeetWM. Be sure to check out our friends at Licit Glass. Some of our best dudes out there. If you're looking to purchase any sort of products, right there. Best in the country. What Gibby is doing down at Licit Glass, licitglass.com. Dustin, see you next week.
See you next week, man.